Hello, welcome to Code to Compute. Today I am going to teach you about the networking concept, and today I am covering you how to do the subnetting. Subnetting is very interesting topic, and I will have some cheat sheet which you can do, and then you can have which you can then crack. You can do subnetting easily. Let's dive in. So, if you know binary system, so there are total 32 bits. 32 bits. There are total 32 bits. And if you go 32 bits, then you will come to know how many IPs are there and how many networks are there. 1 minute. So there are total 32 bits and you can't have all the networks or you can't have all the hosts. So let's say I'm typing 192. Let's do this MX toolbox. I'm just checking. See, so SMTP google.com, this resolves to this IP address. This IP address, this means this is a IP address, but this is a host IP. And inside that, there is a one network IP and there is a host IP. So let's go one bit. Let's go to more clarity. So there are total 32 bits system, and out of this, it it divided into two parts, 8 and 24. So so let's say standard way, what we have is 24 bits is the network and 8 bits is a host. So let's say 192.168. We know that if you go to router page, you will see 192.168 and dot one. This is a private IP. So if you see, the last IP of this is 254. That means, and the IP starts from 0 to 255. So let me just go in more clarity. So we know there are 32-bit system, and either it can be 8 network bits and 24 host bit and vice versa. So you cannot have full network or you cannot have full host. So that's why it divided into two parts. So now there are total 24. So if you know the binary system, if you 0, 2 raised to the power 0 is 1, 2 raised to the power 1 is 2, 2 raised to the power 2 is 4, 2 raised to the power 3 is 8. So similar way, these are the binary systems. So if we go till 24, these are the total IPs. That means if we just have the 8 network bit, these are these many number of hosts, it can be added here. And if we see, and similar way, if we just take the network bit as 24, so you will have only this many hosts, 8, 256 hosts. So only 256 IP address. But yeah, we are running on the internet age, so that's why we cannot have this only 256 IP addresses. That's why there are network IPs are more and host IP addresses are more. Host IP addresses are less. And that's why there is a concept came as a private IP address. So let's consider if you need two 500 servers to run an application, and you cannot request 500 IPs to the vendor or ISP that I need 500 IPs. Technically you can, but it's not viable. So that's why we use private IP addresses. If let's say here we have only 216-bit block, that means we have 16 multiplied by 256 4096. These many IPs we can have in this private subnet. So similarly, these are 20-bit block, these are the private IP address. So now how to calculate the subnet? If we go our, if we consider 192, so consider this first is a 8 block, second dot is a 8 block, third is a 8 block, and one is 8 block. So for each dot there is a one separation. So now this together makes 32 block of IP addresses. So 32 bit. So now we consider 24 is a network bit and 8 as a host bit. So that means in this 192.168.1.1, this is the IP, but if you go to the address, it becomes 1.192.168.1.0. That becomes the host address. So if you go number 8, so now we know that there are 8 bit of host. So if you go by binary system, if you go, that means 256. So simple. If you want to calculate how many machines can be supported in this IP address, so from this you know the 2 raised to the power 8 to 56. So 256 minus 2. Minus 2 becomes 254. So that becomes 254 becomes the total IP addresses which can be supported by this IP addresses. Why 250? So there is a one like a network. How can we differentiate between the host network and the um, host IP address and the network IP addresses? So that's why for every range which which you encounter, that becomes one up. So every IP address must should have one network address and one broadcast address. So it will be much clearer to you. Let me just go to IP calculator and there you will see. So 192.168.0.1. We log into some router like 0.1 or 1.1. This is our router IP address. Now we consider 824 because that is our standard subnet. If we consider this is a network mask that is 24. That means 2 raised to the power 8. That means 256 IP addresses will be total IP addresses which are there inside this. But you can't use that IP address because 192.168.1.0 that becomes the network IP address and the last IP address becomes the broadcast IP address. And that's why from host 1.1 to the 1.254, these are the actual IP addresses which can be used by any network or any devices. So how to calculate any IP at any subnet? So generally, if we see, if you go in AWS or somewhere, it will show that 192.168.0.1 slash 32. So slash 32 means only this IP address can be allowed. That means it doesn't care what is this. It just consider this as a IP address. It can be IP address, this can be network address, but unless this is resolved by this, only this IP address is allowed or not allowed. Now if we go to 31, that means 2. This is not possible. That means one network address, one broadcast address. There is no any IP address allowed in this. Now if you go to 32, that means there are total four IP address available here. But if you get rid of two, because one becomes a network IP address and one becomes the broadcast, that means only two IPs are available here. If we 8 minus 2, 6, the total 6 IP address can be used here. Here 14, here 30, here 62, here 126, here 254. This is how. And similar way, that's why, because now we know that 8, so 8 becomes a margin. So if we go, and this is called a net mask. So if we select 24, that means 256 IP addresses are there, out of which 254 can be used. If you go down, the number will increase like the 23, 22, 21. If we increase it, then the host addresses will be reduced. This way, this is a short summary how to do networking.